So my name's Helen Jenkins. I'm a two-time triathlon world champion. I have been to 3 Olympic Games and I'm also an MBE.
Amazing. That's a really great introduction. Thank you. We last talked back in May 2020, which seems a long time ago now. So that was kind of just at the start of the pandemic. You'd managed to get a race in Dubai that year. It was you've sort of come back from back surgery and children, and then obviously we've had a long time without competition, and now you've decided that you're calling a day on professional triathlon. What were the main factors in making that decision to step away from competing professionally?
It was a tough decision because I do love competing. I love triathlon, but it all came down to a lot of it was health. I had a back surgery in 2018, and I've had over the last year, I've had quite a lot of symptoms of some of my old back pain, some of the old things coming on, and there's just a point where you have to think, how much is it worth risking for your future health? I want to have a future. I want to have a good back in the future. I want to be able to go for a run in 20 years, 30 years. I want to be able to go surfing. I want to be able to, pick up my kids and not have to worry about my back. So a lot of it was to do with kind of my back health as well, more than anything. And I just, I wasn't able to train as I need to do. I wasn't able to train as I want to do to be able to compete at the top level. And I just felt like I wasn't showing the best of myself just because I wasn't able to do as much training as possible.
Yeah. It sounds like you kind of made the right decision for you. But what are you going to miss about competing professionally? There's going to be things you miss, right?
Oh, there's going to be so much. And I think I kind of decided a few months ago, so I've had a lot of time to reflect on the decision, because I think, most people say like retiring or, finishing professional sport is one of the biggest decisions you'll make because it's such a huge part of your life. So I've had a lot of time to reflect, and I think it's that feeling of, crossing a finish line, whether it's in first, whether it's in 5th, 10th, 20th, but knowing you've kind of given everything, you've achieved your goals for the race. I think, that's going to be maybe hard to replace, but I'm a really motivated person. So I'm looking for other avenues, in life where I can kind of have that goal and kind of work towards it. I'm not sure anything's going to feel the same as kind of running down the blue carpet, high-fiving crowds and crossing, holding up the finish tape. I'm not sure anything is going to replicate that, but, I really kind of cherish those moments. But I think it's that satisfaction at a finish line is maybe what I'm going to miss the most.
And anything that you won't miss?
I would say like early morning training, but I still go early morning training. I still train, so that hasn't changed. I maybe just don't train as much. I think for me, with all the problems, especially my back problems I've had over the years, I have had to train through a lot of pain, and quite often I might get sort of with my problems, I sometimes get shooting pains down my legs, and I might feel those in a run. I think, oh no, like, what's going to happen? Is this going to develop into a serious problem where I'm going to be out for a few months? Is this something I can kind of cope with? A bit of stretching is going to ease it off. So I think it just takes out a massive sort of anxiety and worry from my day-to-day kind of training that I would kind of go through. To every kind of pain or ache, is it related to my back, and how long is the problem going to be for? So that's probably, I'm not going to miss that kind of stress and worry. At the moment, if I go for a run and I kind of have a sore leg, I'm like, oh, well, I just won't run for a few days. It doesn't really matter. Whereas in the past, it's obviously mattered a lot of training, and a professional athlete is your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just looking back, you've had such a long and successful career. What are the memories that you're going to treasure the most?
There's so many. Qualifying for the Olympic Games, I think I qualified in 2008. It was kind of a real shock to me to qualify. When I qualified for London 2012 Olympics, it was in front of home crowd. I won the London Hyde Park event. All my family were there. It was amazing. Racing at the London Olympics, although not my best, it was a bad day for me. That the crowd, the whole experience was absolutely incredible. And then again qualifying for the Olympics in 2016, when I think I might have been written off a little bit. I think I'd written myself off in my head. So to come back and have like an amazing performance, win a big race and qualify for the Olympics was something I kind of think I overcame a lot of self-doubt to do that. There's been so many races, so many people, like been to so many different places, like it's just an amazing life. And I'm more reflective because I've been thinking about this for a few months, but I'm so lucky that I've been able to do it.
What's your favorite place that you've raced in?
Oh, San Diego, because I love San Diego. We've got friends out there, and we spent quite a lot of time like just north of San Diego. So we got to go down and do the race there in 2012, and that was one of the best performances I've ever had. I mean, I led the swim, I felt strong on the bike, and had the fastest run I've ever had. So yeah, definitely San Diego.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. Just again, like looking back at your career, you've kind of been a real inspiration for a lot of triathletes, and in 2012 you were the highest placed GB triathlete that there'd ever been. So you've really been leading the way, and now, like looking at the generation that we've got, we got like 3 medals in Tokyo. So like, what do you think the secret is with Team GB, and just with, you were actually probably at the vanguard of this, but like the standards just seem to be increasing all the time.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time there was, there's a lot of really strong GB women, but I was one of the strongest women for a very long time. Then after that 2012, where I got my 5th, and then kind of the following day we had Alan John get like the gold and the bronze, Alan John Brownlee. So I think the profile of triathlon has like raised massively in the UK, and that has probably contributed to a lot of athletes actually knowing what triathlon is and thinking like that's actually like something I'd love to do. So I think that's helped, but I don't think there is any big secret. We've had some really, really like talented athletes like come into the sport, and we have like a talent ID system, but you can have as many talent ID systems as you want, but if you don't have those like really good athletes coming in, then it's not going to go forward. So yeah, the medals this year in Tokyo were incredible to watch, and like I loved kind of just seeing like especially with the women I've like competed with them. They're still the women I competed with a few years ago, so to see them kind of come forward and kind of get medals was absolutely incredible.
I watched I watched all of it, but the mixed relay, that was just really exciting, and I'd never seen one before, so I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know how it was going to work, but it was super fun to watch. We've seen the mixed TTT for road racing as well at the Olympics and at World Championship level. Do you think what do you think about these mixed events? I mean, they're fairly new. Do you think they're kind of part of the future of tri?
Yeah, well, definitely. It's in the Olympic Games now, so it is part of the future of tri. And I think I competed in my first one in 2011, and like there was a few kind of in the years before that, but obviously there's so many more now. And I think it was one of the standout races for Team GB, for any like British fan, whether you're a fan of triathlon, whatever sport you're a fan of. It was one of the standout moments of the Olympics, like to see. I don't know what appeals about the mixed gender relays, but I think like people seem to love watching them, and I loved like it. I mean, the Team GB were flawless. Like they were like, every leg was brilliant, every transition was perfect. So it was just a really, really exciting event to watch. So yeah, I'd be so keen on having. They're going to have them over the next few Olympics. So yeah, it's great. It's great. There's more medals for triathlon at the Olympics. Whereas previously there was only kind of the 6 medals. We've added in another 3 medals, which is great for any athlete kind of going to an Olympic Games.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing it again for sure. So your career has spanned quite a number of years. Where it is now compared to where triathlon was, what are the biggest changes that have had the most impact on the sport?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I started at age sort of 15, 16. So yeah, I've been doing it for like over 20 years. So it has changed. I think one of the biggest things is there's so much more variety now. When I started, you did sprint distance races when you were a junior, and then once you were kind of a senior athlete, you just did Olympic distance races, or there was the half Ironman or the 70, the Ironman. There was that still in Hawaii, the big world championships. There wasn't even like a 70.3 worlds then. So I think just the more and more events coming in, a lot more diversity. There's a lot more sprint races now, mixed team relay, eliminator formats. Especially recently with Super League, all the different formats they use. The Collins Cup did a really different format. So there just seems to be more and more racing out there. But I think that's reflective of triathlon growing like all over the world, and participation levels have just gone up. So I guess there's just more races out there. I think that's been one of the biggest changes. And even when I kind of finished Olympic distance racing in Rio in 2016, it was still maybe more Olympic distance racing, where there is definitely more, I'd say it's called the sprint format or the super sprint format coming in now.
Just going back to diversity in the sport as well. Now, I know that you're quite passionate about getting more women into the sport. Where are we at now in triathlon, and what are the kind of barriers that you see for women to getting into the sport, if anything?
I think there is more women in the sport. Like if you look at percentages in competitions, there's more women doing it than used to. If you look at Cardiff Half Marathon, I think the last time it was ran as an event, I think would have been 2019. There was more women competing than men. So I think it was like 51% women, 49 men. We haven't kind of got to that level yet that maybe running is tipping into with those big mass participation events. But I think a lot of it is accessibility to training, time. Myself and my husband Mark were just talking about this, because he was my coach as well, but now he runs a swim club, and we've just set up a group, and it's for people who want to learn to swim but don't really necessarily want to go to adult swim lessons. So it's a squad for swimmers, and it's 9 till 10 in the evening. So if you've got any sort of family or work commitments, it's definitely all done by then. And you think, what's my motivation going to be like at that time of night? Probably not great. But the fact you're going with other people, to a squad, it kind of keeps that motivation there. So there's just similar sort of things in triathlon that where we have training sessions that are accessible to not just women, but accessible to people around family life, like early sessions, late sessions, just building up that kit. And I suppose it's just making women aware that triathlon is a really good, viable option. To even if you want to pick an event, a lot of people go, I'll do a marathon or I'll do a half marathon. But well, no, why don't you try like an Olympic distance tri? So, or a half Ironman, or even a super sprint, just anything. It's just giving that as an option. And there's loads of great Her Spirit. That's like a really great great project, which is moving forward about getting more women into sport, setting different challenges for people. So there's so many things out there. It's I really hope it works, because I think I've just had such an amazing career for triathlon. But it's not just about a career, it's any race you do, that sense of satisfaction, putting in that time and effort, crossing a finish line, that can be at any level of the sport. So it's such a good feeling, it's such a positive. I think that's and I hope to show my kids that as well, although I'm not competing professionally anymore, that they can see me kind of working towards a goal and competing at whatever level
absolutely.
it is.
I mean, I saw that you did the Manchester 10K, and you said in your blog that you have some bucket list events to tick off now that you're retired. I guess the pressure's off for sort of professional competition at a certain distance, and you can just do what you want now. What events are they? What are your bucket list events that you wanna get done now?
Well, I love Manchester because I've never done that mass participation event. So like it was so great to be like amongst the crowds and kind of be running around different people. So like I'd love to do a half marathon. I don't really mind where. I'd love to do a marathon at some point. Like I would love to do London because it's such an iconic event, isn't it? So to do something like that. Triathlon wise, I'm not sure. I mean, I've never done an Ironman, but I don't know if I've got time to train for it at the moment. So it would be quite good to go and maybe tick off something like that as an amateur, obviously, just to kind of have done the distance. And I always fancy doing the Alpe d'Huez triathlon at some point. So that's a few. Maybe a long distance swimming event. There's so many different events out there now, isn't there? You look at the you start Googling different events, and you could fill up every weekend if you wanted to.
Yeah, sounds like you'll be keeping yourself busy for a little while, really.
I've got to find the time to train for everything first.
Yeah. How do you and Mark juggle the childcare between you? Because obviously you've got your coaching business as well.
Yeah, it's just that's a lot easier now. I'm not training professionally, whereas before, I'd wake up and it's like, well, what training have I got to go do today? And then I fit everything around kind of that with the kids and different stuff. Whereas now it's it's a bit more relaxed, and like Mark's actually got a bit more time to do the stuff he needs to do because he's not looking after the kids while I'm training. So I still train, but as opposed to going on the bike for 3 hours, I might just jump on Zwift for an hour and go hard. It's just having that bit more flexibility. We just try and plan really, like kind of, well, what's up, it's like the night before, what's on for your day tomorrow, right? So and we kind of make a bit of a plan. Our little girl's in school now, she's in reception. And then our little boy, he's going to start school kind of in the nursery next September, so kind of time's going to go so quick, so I'm just kind of enjoying the time with them really as much as I can.
Yeah. It must be nice just to have that extra flexibility in your schedule.
Yeah, it is really nice, and there's so many like triathletes out there that compete now and have children, and I think it's so inspirational. I know that if my body was in good shape, we could definitely do it. Like it's not having the children there is not a barrier. I think it does make life harder. You definitely don't get as much sleep, probably for most athletes. Well, most women competing with children, but it's definitely doable. But it's been really nice over the last few months to spend a bit more time with them and have some more flexibility to spend more time.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned Zwift, so that's kind of, we're out, hopefully out the other side of the pandemic now, but kind of during all the lockdowns, it did play a role in some of the competitions, just keeping competition going. Can you tell me about like how you've seen that kind of adding to Tri, and whether you think it's going to be an element going forwards in the future, or whether it was just out of necessity?
Yeah, I mean, Zwift played a massive part over the pandemic. I mean, having those races was brilliant. It was hugely motivating to kind of have something to train for. You still got those kind of all those pre-race nerves. You knew that kind of race pain was coming. You got to compete against other athletes. So it definitely filled a gap in the pandemic. But that being said, like I think there's definite benefits to it. The races got you super fit. So at certain points of the year, if they run kind of those Zwift Pro Series or Zwift Pro Tri Series, I'm sure they'd still get athletes that want to sign up for them, because it was, it's kind of exciting to do. It really breaks up kind of the training as well. I mean, I use Zwift a lot in my kind of day-to-day training, especially even before the pandemic with having kids. Like it fits in a lot better. It meant that I could maybe start my long ride at 6, in the winter, I could start my long ride at 6 in the morning, do a couple of hours on Zwift, and then actually do the last few hours outside. It really kind of allowed me a bit of flexibility. So you're not out of the house for, the half a day on the bike. I was kind of either in the garage early before they got up and then managed. So it does give you a lot of flexibility that, right, especially in the winter when it's dark.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think of kind of pro teams recruiting people through Zwift? I think it's personally like quite a good move to get people that might not have been picked up in the sport at a young age. Oh
yeah, it's great, because you think a lot of the athletes that are maybe done cycling from a young age, that they've been through kind of all different I suppose certain steps to get there, the way you might through a triathlon, like a talent ID program, then maybe the British Junior squad, then maybe certain races, there's certain steps. And I think the Zwift racing, you get someone who comes on age maybe mid-20s, even later, and go, oh, I'm actually really good at cycling, and then is actually given the opportunity, whereas that might not always occur. And I think it happens more definitely in long distance tri. You get people in later life kind of turning pro in their careers, having maybe a normal career first, then maybe going professional later on. So it's really, really interesting how it all kind of has contributed to getting more people into the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's super inspiring to see people of an older age that, you know, like I think for someone of my age, certainly, seeing people at an older age getting in that weren't like competing from being a teenager, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it can seem a bit, I think before it's felt a bit unattainable. It's like, well, how would I do that? I haven't done, you know, all this other stuff. Whereas then, yeah, it definitely feels more attainable now. You can kind of, there's roots into the sport that weren't there before.
Yeah, for sure. So another impact of the pandemic that we're still kind of, you know, things are getting back to normal, but there's still a few impacts on the racing calendar. One of the things is the Ironman World Championships is moved to May from October this year. Yeah, and it's going to be in Utah this year. How do you think that's going to impact it?
Yeah, it's been confusing with all the
yeah.
Yeah, I think with Ironman World Championships moving from October to May, and for the first time being outside of Kona, I mean, it's a huge decision for Ironman to take, because I think so many people, Kona is like the legend. It's, you know, that's where you want to go, that's where you aspire to. It's a super tough race. Well, Ironman's tough anyway, isn't it? And then you do it like on a hot, humid island in Hawaii, it's even tougher. But I think they've made the right decision to move it for May, because you know, another year of it being cancelled, it's not just, you know, obviously it's about the athletes who are competing, but otherwise you've had two years of people missing events, the sponsors who are all involved, and the generating the money for the events. So I think it's really hard for the athletes who really wanted to go to Kona. I think that's a real shame. But at the moment, Utah is going to be more accessible for more people. Hopefully it's going to be a safer environment. It's about safety as well, isn't it? So what's going to be a really interesting dynamic is having 2021 World Championships in May, and then 2022 World Championships back in Hawaii in October. That's going to be, that's two big peaks for athletes to try and hit, those athletes who are kind of going for Kona. So I still call it Kona. It's not Kona, is it? It's the Ironman World Championships. But really interesting to see how that's going to play out, and how the athletes are going to peak two times.
I think that's the main challenge, isn't it? Where events are kind of getting postponed, but then there's not such a gap between one year and the next. Certainly with the Olympics as well, they've only got a 3-year cycle this time round, as opposed to a 4-year cycle.
Yeah, and I'd say I was thinking there of pros kind of peaking twice really in the year, but for the age groups, I'm sure some of them are going to be happy just to be able to get to do their race, but then some obviously is going to be disappointed on missing out on Kona. But I think it's just probably the best decision under really hard circumstances. That's kind of where it is. But and only 3 years to another Olympics. It's so so I've been doing some of the World Triathlon stuff. When the athletes cross the finish line now, they're already talking about kind of Paris, like some of the younger athletes, like this is my build now, or towards Paris, especially for the ones who kind of missed out on Tokyo. So kind of exciting already about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Who do you think we need to watch out for in Paris then?
Do you know, it's this up and coming stars like Alex Yee, Georgia Taylor Brown, but they're not up and coming. They both just won like a gold and a silver medal at the Olympics. I think, you know, I still think those two are going to be up there and incredibly hard to beat, with that extra kind of few more years of training. And if I just on the British side, I mean, I don't want to, you've got Vicky Holland, non-Stanford, who are still competing really well, but after Com Games next year, I'm not sure what their plans are. Underneath kind of, I suppose, Jess Learmont, your Georgia Taylor Brown a bit further, you've got Sian Rainsley coming up, who's had some incredible races this year, and really kind of, as her first year as a senior, come through really strong. So we've got to be looking at people like her, Olivia Matthias, Kate Woff. The men's is more difficult. Underneath Alex Yee, there's a big gap then in the standard. So it's who's going to come in and fill that standard if we don't see Johnny Brownlee go for another Olympic cycle, which he may. But then the rest of the world, there's so many athletes coming through at the moment. It's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out over the next few years. And I wouldn't write off a few of maybe people term them the older athletes, because they're in their kind of early 30s. But there's kind of plenty of time and experience left there as well.
One of the names I've heard as well is Lucy Charles-Barclay. Now, she normally does kind of longer distance try, but I think she's been talking about wanting to get into the Olympic team. I mean, how hard is that going to be for someone to retrain for that different distance?
Yeah, I didn't mention Lucy in it because I consider her like she's not up and coming, isn't she? She's so well established. But yeah, I think she's got a definite chance of making Paris in 2024 because her swim strength is incredible. Her only weaknesses are things maybe like her transition speed or her bike technical ability, but they are things that can be so easily improved just by actually getting out there and racing more. But yeah, she's been one of the GB women that would be kind of aiming, heading towards that team, especially, she's been kind of almost unstoppable this year. So incredibly exciting to see her moving into the short course racing.
Yeah, absolutely. She's hoping to go sub 7 hours for Ironman at some point shortly. So we've got Alistair Brownlee as well. Alistair Brownlee and Christian Blumenfeld are going to attempt to go sub 7 hours, and then Lucy Charles-Barclay and Nicola Spirig are going to try to break 8 hours. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting challenge. I guess coming off the back of almost the breaking the 2 hours for the marathon. So I don't know all the details. I think they're going to be able to do it with pacers, with different people involved to be able to kind of try and break this. The women's, it's less of a jump to make the women's, and I think with the shape we've seen of Lucy Charles-Barclay and how she's raced over the past sort of couple of years, I think she's definitely got the potential to do it. I mean, Nicola Spirig, one of the all-time great Olympic distance athletes, but she also raced incredibly well over the half Ironman distance, has done Ironman. She hasn't done as many, so she's maybe a bit more unknown. But Nicola's incredibly determined and a hugely talented athlete, so I'm sure she's got the capability too. The men's is tougher, I think, to get that sub 8. I think they've got a longer jump to do. So yeah, really interesting. It'd be exciting to see how much the athletes kind of really put into it and how committed they are to it. We know, like with Christian Blumenfeld and the Norwegian team, they're work incredibly so sports science focused, really on about their testing and like the aerodynamics of like the Olympic suit and everything. Like they just go above and beyond to get the best equipment and kind of get the best out of themselves. So for someone like Christy, I'm sure this challenge is like really exciting, and he'll turn up like 100% kind of committed and focused and ready to do it.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. I don't know when it's going to. Do you know when it's going to happen?
I think it's next year sometime. I don't know. Like I know Nicola pretty well. I don't think she knew exactly when they were attempting it. Not sure yet.
But these time records, they're made to be broken, but they do a lot, I think, for the profile of sports. Like I know when anyone attempts the hour record, it makes it into sort of mainstream media, doesn't it? It's the same with the 2 hour marathon. That was everywhere. So I think this is a really positive thing for the sport.
Yeah, just that kind of awareness of triathlon. And we've had so many races this year. It seems like another level this year of triathlon with the Collins Cup, Super League, the Olympics, the Triathlon World Series. There's been so many events out there. It's actually been a really exciting year for kind of new events and getting to see kind of, for a triathlon fan anyway.
Yeah. Can you just tell me a bit about the Super League? Well, maybe just for the audience as well, just because it's quite a new format, and I think it's quite an interesting format of racing. So can you just tell me sort of what you know about how that's raced?
Yeah, so Super League they've been going for a few years, so they tend to be like really short, fast events. Like they might do 3 triathlons back to back over really short distances. It's incredibly hard, tough racing. Like you see, like every athlete crosses the finish line pretty much sort of falls over. Like it's and this year they had probably 20 men, 20 women, and they were contracted to do 4 races in the series. So they raced 4 weekends back to back over these exciting kind of short formats, different places around the world. And then they also had a team element in there. There was like lots of money available for the athletes to win. So yeah, really kind of really different format that from we've seen from maybe over the last few years. I mean, when I first started triathlon really young, this kind of racing happened in Australia, the Formula One series, which was the series that kind of Chris McCormack, who is kind of one of the founders and the pushers behind Super League, he would have been racing that back in those days. So now he's kind of put this series forward, and he's the drive behind it at the moment, getting it out there. So yeah, really exciting to see, and great for athletes, you know, to, especially over the last sort of couple of years where earning opportunities have been lower due to COVID times, to be able to go out there and earn some really good money.
And another sort of vaguely new thing that's happened is the PTO. That's a fairly new organisation. Can you tell me a bit about what they're doing to raise the profile of triathlon?
Yeah, so Professional Triathletes Organisation, I mean, it started the format was, as we know it, is quite new, but it started a long time ago with a lot of kind of very dedicated athletes just trying to get the best, you know, for professional athletes, get good paychecks, get everyone out there racing well. So it's been going a long time, but over the last few years obviously become more professional. They've still got a lot of the original athletes involved, which is really cool. And they're looking to kind of, promote triathlon and have good races, good paydays, make triathlon a really big sport and that people kind of want to watch, not just triathlon fans, but I suppose the average person who kind of is a sports fan tunes in to watch kind of the races. And the Collins Cup this year was a really kind of new format. But it really kind of, I think it was really exciting, like to draw people in, like the different matchups there was sort of the team element, Team Europe versus Team USA versus Team International. They kind of really tried to draw up some rivalries and get people kind of into it. So based on the Ryder Cup from golf. But yeah, I really, I don't know if I'm biased because I'm a triathlon fan, kind of, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, they're putting the money in. They're really trying to kind of promote triathlon and move it forward, make these triathletes become household names, all for the good of the athletes. And one amazing thing the PTO is doing from the women's side is maternity leave for women who are having their babies. So that's really a real positive as well.
Yeah. And they've been quite vocal recently about wanting to get prize money equal, because I know in triathlon, I think there are some races where the prize money is equal for women and men, but not all of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure about I mean, like in World Triathlon, it's always been equal.
Yeah.
Even from when they did their first World Championships, you think, I suppose with triathlon, it is a young sport. It's founded kind of 70s, so it's definitely has been equal in that sense in terms of equal distance. I know the World Championships have always in ITU World Triathlon have always been equal prize money. So that's one real positive of it for women.
So just looking at what you're doing now, briefly. So I know that you've been commentating on some racing recently. Can you tell me about your experiences of commentating and how it's been to, be on the other side of the camera, so to speak, but also be impartial? Because obviously you've got friends and ex-teammates that are still racing, and you've got to try to present maybe more of a balanced view of the race when you might be going, come on, How has that been?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the commentary recently. So I've been doing the World Triathlons for the World Cups and the World Triathlon Championship Series. So I've done commentary before, but I've always been maybe injured or kind of when I was pregnant. So I've always really missed it and wanted to be back in the racing, but I'm enjoying it so much more now. I'm kind of like, I'm done with racing. So I'm so much more into the commentary, and I love, like watching the races, seeing these like amazing performances. And I want to kind of give an insight into what it feels to be like in those races and why someone might be doing that in the race at a different point. But yeah, it's hard to be like impartial. I'm so I wouldn't have been able to do the Olympics because I just would have been so excited, especially on the mixed team relay. I would have found that really tough. So yeah.
It's sometimes fun though, isn't it? Like on the Olympics, because sometimes like I know the BBC presenters get a bit carried away and you see them jumping on the sofa and things.
Yeah, it's really good fun, and I'm really enjoying it. It's lovely to still be involved in triathlon, and yeah, I just want to do kind of the best job possible by the athletes. Really, just kind of try and do a lot of research into kind of what they've done, what their goals are, what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, kind of previous results and stuff. So yeah, just so I can kind of give a really good insight to the people that are watching.
Yeah, I think I think it's really good as well to have somebody that's actually been there and done that in the commentating, and kind of can understand the tactics a bit more. Yeah. Definitely, yeah. Okay, cool. So just one final question, I think, from me, and that is, where can we see you next? What's next on the agenda for you?
Next on the agenda, well, I guess no professional races. No, I'm doing the commentary for the rest of this season, so we've got a couple of races coming up, but I haven't picked what kind of my next sort of event will be doing. Really, we're almost just still kind of adjusting to life really without all the training. We've got a camp coming up with our athletes that we coach for our coaching, so that's really exciting. So we haven't met a lot of them because we started a coaching business in a pandemic, so that was really hard to do. So we've got a camp coming up for that. So yeah, but really just getting used to life, I suppose, on the other side.
Okay, cool. So we'll probably next see you on the on the racing coverage, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Well, good luck with everything for the future. I think we're going to leave it there today. Okay, cool. Well, it's been an absolute joy to talk to you again, Helen. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us again.